Hello everyone, welcome back to Strive Edge IAS. In this video series, we will be discussing about the past 1 to 1.5 years of current affairs, the topics and their background. This series provides for detailed, crisp analysis done by subject experts that will help you excel in your upcoming Prelims 2025. So let us begin with the 7th Polity lecture. Yesterday we completed some of the miscellaneous subtopics. So today we'll just continue with that. First subtopic is centrally sponsored schemes. Why was it in news? Because Niti Aayog has proposed reforms to improve the fund utilization and efficiency of CSS. Because several centrally sponsored schemes suffer from redundancy, low fund absorption, and ineffective implementation. So, what is the CSS? It is basically any scheme that is funded jointly by the center and states. Okay, there are different proportions in which the center and the states contribute. So the CSS account for 4.76 lakh crore, which is about 10.4% of the total government spending. And 75 centrally sponsored schemes exist, which cover multiple ministries. So what are the challenges with respect to the CSS is that we see a scheme duplication. For example, the Green Revolution CSS has 18 different sub-schemes, leading to resource wastage. Also, there are rigid guidelines wherein the states cannot modify CSS according to local needs, and there is low fund utilization as well. That's why the Niti Aayog has set up a task force for the revamping of centrally sponsored schemes. So, what is important over here, guys, is the centrally sponsored schemes versus the central sector schemes. Let us move on to the next subtopic. Citizen participation in governance. MyGov at 10 years. So the MyGov platform completed 10 years in August 2024, making a decade of citizen engagement in policy making. So MyGov was launched in 2014 as a digital governance platform for citizens to provide feedback on policy decisions. So what were the major campaigns that were included in MyGov? They were Swachh Bharat Survekshan, public participation in sanitation initiative, then Stay Safe online campaign, raising awareness about cyber security, and Millet Superfood campaign, which promotes millet in daily diets. But there are still challenges with respect to these kind of initiatives, that there is a digital divide with respect to the rural India, which also limits the participation. What else is important is various e-governance initiatives. MyGov is one, then Umang, CP grams, all this. We also studied about the social audit. Okay, so give a read to that also. Next subtopic is lateral entry in civil services. So why was it in news? Because UPSC withdrew recruitment for 45 lateral entry posts due to lack of SC/ST reservation, SC/ST OBC reservations. So what is lateral entry basically? Lateral entry allows private sector experts to be appointed to senior bureaucratic positions without going through the UPSC exams. Okay, why was it introduced? It was introduced to address the IAS shortage and bring domain expertise into governance. So what are the issues with lateral entries? It bypasses the reservation policies. Since lateral entry positions are single post, they do not have the SC, ST, and OBC quotas. And there could be a potential conflict of interest too, like private sector entrants may favor corporate interests in policy making. And they have short tenures. So the appointments are only for 3 to 5 years, which lead to policy discontinuity. Okay. So if there is a question, what is the key objective? Key objective for lateral entry in civil services. Is it to reduce the bureaucracy size? Is it to infuse domain expertise in governance? Is it to privatize the administration? Or to increase the ministerial control? You can give the right answer in the comments down. But the correct answer for this is to infuse domain expertise in governance. What else is important with respect to this is the mission Karma Yogi, which we will shortly discuss, but make a point that you read about this. Next subtopic is global AI governance. The recent development about this is the Council of Europe introduced first legally binding treaty on AI, focusing on human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Hence, it is very important because it has introduced a legally binding treaty. What are the provisions? Risk-based approach to regulate AI design, use, and decommissioning. Obligates signatories to align AI activities with democratic and human rights principles. Okay, so these are the main provisions. What are the Indian initiatives similar to this? Niti Aayog has launched AI for all and guidelines responsible for responsible AI use. Then in the DPDP Act, it addresses the AI related privacy concerns. National Program on AI encourages AI innovation and skill development. So in global steps, the G7 AI Pact for Responsible Development, then Europe's AI Act, and the Bletchley Declaration to Manage Frontier AI Risks. So we have G7 AI Pact, Europe's AI Act, and the Bletchley Declaration. So this is important, guys. Okay, you can have a question similar to this. What is the Bletchley Declaration about, or what is it in regards to? Is it for environment, conservation, climate change, or biodiversity, or AI, use of AI? The correct answer to this is AI. What else is important with this is the DPDP Act and the cyber security regulations. Next subtopic is grievance redressal mechanism. So there are some new guidelines for it. First of all, it is the timely resolution. So the reduced timelines from 30 days to 21 days. So to redress a grievance, earlier it was 30 days, but now it is made 21 days. Also, there are integrated platforms like the CP Grams serves as a centralized portal for grievance submission and tracking. Okay, also there is enhanced monitoring, monthly performance ranking for ministries, and dedicated grievance cells. So the CP Grams has resolved nearly 60 lakh grievances between 2022 to 2014. The Grievance Redressal Assessment Index introduced for comparative performance analysis. So, which portal is used for public grievance redressal. So is it RTI online, CP grams, is it Pragati or Umang? Correct answer is CP grams. What else becomes important with this is the Lokpal Act. Next subtopic is Unified Pension Scheme. So earlier we had something called as the old pension scheme. Then we got a new pension scheme. Okay. So the new pension scheme was basically a market driven, as in share market. It also had some contribution from the employees as well. But after the new pension scheme, the people were not very pleased with that. So what the government did instead is they got a mixture of both, which is the unified pension scheme. Okay, so the unified pension scheme merges multiple pension schemes into one platform. It ensures portability across jobs and sectors. So it provides a guaranteed minimum pension while retaining the financial stability of the new pension scheme. So this was a feature of the old pension scheme, minimum pension, and financial sustainability is the feature of the new pension scheme. So the current and retired employees can, under NPS, can opt for UPS. Okay, with choices being final once made. The goal is to combine the benefits of both OPS and NPS, ensuring financial security for employees and the retirees. Okay, so what is important with respect to this is the old pension scheme, the new pension scheme, and UPS. Also, Atal Pension Yojana 2. Okay, Atal Pension Yojana was actually designed for the unorganized sector workers. Okay. Next subtopic is the UAPA prosecution timeline. We've done this before. It is the same thing again. That the Supreme Court has ruled that 14-day timeline for granting sanction. Next subtopic is plea bargaining. So what is plea bargaining? Plea bargaining is a process in which a defendant in a criminal case agrees to plead guilty in exchange for some concession from the prosecutor or the court. Okay. So suppose a person has done a crime, accused is guilty, then the accused will plead guilty. Okay, he will accept his fault, his or her fault, in exchange of some kind of concession. The concession could be anything. It could be a reduced sentence, a lesser charge, okay, dropping some of the charges. So what is the aim of plea bargaining? It is to resolve a criminal case without going to trial, thereby saving time and resources. Okay, suppose a person who has actually committed a crime goes on saying that he's not guilty, then there is a lot of prosecution done, everything is done, and then finally it is revealed that he or she is guilty. So in order to save all of that, it is kind of a bargaining done, that the accused person says that okay, I have done this, I have done the crime, and you can give me some reduced punishment for it. Okay, so this is in case of the criminal cases. Okay, so what is the context? Why was it in news? Because the Ministry of Law and Justice revealed that only 0.11 of the cases were resolved through plea bargaining in 2022, highlighting its underutilization. So this plea bargaining was introduced into the CRPC in 2006. Okay, the application must be filled within 30 days of charges being framed. Okay, so there is some time limit for it. There is eligibility also applicable for offenses punishable by up to 7 years, and it excludes cases involving crimes against women, children, or socio-economic offenses. So not everybody can plead, can bargain for a plea. Okay, let us move on to the next subtopic now. Bombay High Court on fact-checking units. So what is this fact-checking units? First of all, fact-checking units, they verify news and online content to prevent misinformation. Okay, so basically they check facts of the case. Okay, so the government had proposed IT rules amendment which empowered the fact checking unit to flag false information. Okay, so according to this amendment to the IT rules, the fact checking units were empowered. Okay, but now what the Bombay High Court has done is that Bombay High Court has struck down this amendment because it was constitutionally violating. Okay, what kind of rights it was violating? It infringes the Articles 14, equality, 19.1, freedom of speech, 19.1g, right to practice profession, and 21, right to life. Okay, so why was this a concern? Because the government had empowered those fact checking units, and the definition of fake news was not very precise. So there was nothing defined as fake news. So any criticism of the government could also be termed as fake news, and they could get it removed. Okay, that's why the Supreme Court, the Bombay High Court said that it is constitutionally violating, and hence it is unconstitutional. Okay, so which was the government body which runs the fact checking unit? Is the PIB. Next subtopic is prosecution sanctions. The government of Karnataka recently granted approval to investigate the chief minister, emphasizing the importance of sanctions in preventing malicious prosecution. So what is this? Sanction for prosecuting a public servant is crucial legal requirement designed to protect officials from frivolous or malicious lawsuits. Okay, so if you want to prosecute a public official, so before that prosecution, you actually need a sanction. Okay, why do you need that? Because sometimes some false cases could be made. All right, so it is, it ensures that decisions are made, whatever decisions that the officials make in their official capacity are not, constantly challenged in court without valid grounds. Okay, that's why you need this particular sanction. So what is the legal framework for that? The BNSS section 218 outlines the sanction requirements for prosecuting public servants. So what is important from prelims perspective is this particular thing. Okay, that the public servants, before they are prosecuted, a sanction is needed. Okay, sanction meaning permission basically. And also the Prevention of Corruption Act has this. Okay, the section 17A, which approval required for investigating decisions taken in official capacity. Section 19 says that sanction necessary for prosecuting corruption cases. So what is the purpose? It protects public servants from frivolous or politically motivated investigations while ensuring accountability. Okay, so they can be prosecuted. Okay, the action can be taken against them, but a prior sanction is needed. Okay, let us move on to the next subtopic. Jan Yojana Abhiyan, People's Plan Campaign. So what was the objective of this? Objective was to promote public participation in preparing the panchayat development plans for 2025 to 2026. Okay, so this campaign basically aims to ensure the active participation of local communities in the planning process, promoting bottom up development and all of that. Okay, it encourages the gram panchayats to identify their needs and priorities. So it is held at all panchayat levels with involvement of local of the elected representative, the self-help groups, and the local stakeholders. It uses the Panchayat Development Index to identify gaps and align with the SDGs. Collaboration with Unnat Bharat Abhiyan to involve 15,000 students and approved plan uploaded to the eGram Swaraj portal. So, what is the constitutional basis of this? Article 40 talks about the panchayats as self-government, and Article 243G, which mandates panchayats to prepare development plans on 29 subjects under the 11th schedule. Okay, so who has launched this? Sorry. Launched by Ministry of Panchayati Raj. Okay, what else you can study with this is also the aspirational district program. All the social welfare uh, programs. Okay, next subtopic is Right to Information Act. RTI Act will mark its 20th anniversary in 2025, prompting a review of its impact and challenges. Okay, so RTI was first established in 2005, and now it is the 20th anniversary. So what are the key provisions of RTI Act? It allows citizens to request information from public authorities to ensure transparency. It establishes information commissions for appeals and oversight. So we've done this in our previous classes. You can go through. It also exempts sensitive information under Section 8 of the RTI Act. So why is it important? Because not everything comes under RTI Act. Not everything comes under the right to information. So which section exempts that? Section 8. Okay. So what else is important is RTI plus the Whistleblower Protection Act. Okay. Various amendments to RTI Act and the impact on governance. Next subtopic is Universal Postal Union. So India has released commemorative postage stamps to mark the 150th anniversary of UPU. So what is UPU? It was established in 1874 as the General Postal Union under the Treaty of Bern. Okay, this is important. It is the second oldest international organization after the International Telecommunication Union. Okay, it is UN specialized agency headquartered in Bern, Switzerland, with 192 member countries. Okay, so what is important? The Treaty of Bern. You could get a question saying Treaty of Bern is in what connection? Okay, is it some biodiversity or climate change, or related to AI, or is it related to postal union? Okay, so it is related to the postal union. Also, it is the second most oldest after International Telecommunication Union. Okay, so a little about the ITU. ITU, World Telecommunication Standardization Assembly, was hosted in New Delhi, marking the first time it was held in India and the Asia Pacific region. So when was ITU founded? It was in 1865 with the signing of the International Telegraph Convention in Paris. So it is again a UN specialized agency for digital technology with 193 member states. It is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. So what are the key events of ITU? The WTSA. Okay. Next subtopic is property rights in India. The property rights are governed by the Article 300A. Okay. So Supreme Court verdict, Property Owners Association versus State of Maharashtra. In this, the Supreme Court has given a verdict saying the court restricted the state's power to acquire private property, overruling its earlier rulings from 1978 and 1983 that classified private property as community resource. So now the Supreme Court has said that there is a restricted power on the state to acquire private property. Okay, so the evolution of property rights. Initially, it was a fundamental right under Article 19(1)(f) and Article 31. But from a constitutional right, from a fundamental right, it became a constitutional right under Article 300A by the 44th Amendment of 1978. Okay, so what did this judgment say? It clarified that Article 39B, ownership of community resources, does not automatically justify property acquisition. We've done this in the previous videos. You can go look at it. Okay, in constitutional issues, in that we've covered this. Property acquisition must adhere to the public trust doctrine, balancing public welfare with private rights. Okay, so your private land, it is not community land for the state, for the government to acquire. Okay, then there is a doctrine of eminent domain. So the governments can acquire private property for public use, provided fair compensation is ensured. It includes principles like public use, just compensation, and due process. Okay, so arbitrariness. Okay, arbitrariness must be done away with. Okay, so what is important, guys? Property right, this particular article. So property right, is it a fundamental right? Is it a legal right? Is it a constitutional right? Okay, what kind of right it is? Just make your understanding clear about this. Next subtopic is internal democracy in political parties. So internal democracy ensures transparent candidate selection, decentralization of decision making, and reduced reliance on money and muscle power within the political parties. Okay. So why was it this in news? Because we saw that Indian political parties lack that kind of internal democracy. Okay. Under Article 29A of the Representation of People Act 1951, it provides for registration of political parties with ECI. Okay. ECI's guideline and the application format for the registration prescribes for provisions for internal accountability and everything, but they don't have any proper legal statutory backing for this. Okay, it merely talks about provisions for internal accountability. Okay, so that's why that is a one of our challenges. What is important is this act, this particular section. Okay, what else becomes important is the 10th schedule, anti-defection law, party discipline, all of that. Then the whip. Okay, this becomes important. Civil registration system, the next subtopic. So what is this? Basically, it is a government system for registering, for registration. What do we register? Okay, registration of births, deaths, and marriages. Okay. So the Union Home Minister launched the CRS mobile app developed by the Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India to streamline registration of vital events like births, deaths, and stillbirths. So why is it necessary? Because it reduces delay and ensures uniform documentation nationwide. Okay. What is the legal basis for this? It is governed by the Registration of Births and Deaths Act. So this particular act mandates compulsory registration of these events. Okay. So the registration of birth and death is mandated under the Act of Registration of Births and Deaths Act of 1969. Okay. The CRS is a part of the concurrent list under Schedule 7 of the Constitution. So this is also important. Okay. You could get a question saying which act governs the registration of births and deaths in India. Okay. So is it the Census Act or the Delimitation Act? Okay. Is it the Population Registration Act? Is it the okay? I'm giving 5 options now. Okay, let's take. Is it the Citizenship Act, or is it Registration of Births and Deaths Act? Okay, so this is mandated under this particular act. Okay, let us move ahead now. Prior sanction to prosecute public servants. It is kind of the same thing that we already did. Okay, the Supreme Court ruled in the Directorate of Enforcement versus Bibu Prasad Acharya case that prior sanction is mandatory for prosecuting public servants under the PMLA Act again. Okay, previously we saw it was the Corruption Act, Prevention of Corruption Act. Now it is the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Okay, again same thing. Why? Because it protects the public servant from being prosecuted for actions taken during the discharge of their duties without prior sanction. Okay, it ensures accountability while preventing harassment of officials. So people can just make some false cases against the officials, and then they can be harassed by the agency. So that's why you need a prior sanction for that. But the protection is not absolute. Okay, sanction must come from the appropriate government. Okay, so they are protected, but it is not absolute. So what is the key provision? It is the section 197 of the CRPC, which says that prior sanction is needed. Okay, the next topic is Reports on prisons in India. So the president has released the report on prisons in India, which maps the um prison manuals and measures for reformation and decongestion. Okay, prepared by the Supreme Court's Center for Research and Planning. So what was the key findings of this? There was a high bail rejection rates. Okay, which is 32.3% in session court and 16.2% in the magisterial courts. So over 52% of cases with accused in custody for more than 1 year were still pending at the evidence stage. Also, there is manual scavenging which is persisting in the prisons, and prison labor often reflects a caste-based hierarchy in prisons as well. Okay, hence the report covers prison population overcrowding, under trials, custodial deaths, and prison infrastructure. So, what were the recommendations? Use of technology such as e-prisons and fast and secure transmission of electronic records for improving efficiency. Okay, so that's why what else becomes important with this, guys, is the judicial reforms on bail and under trial prisoners. Next subtopic is Amrit Gyan Kosh portal. So this portal is a comprehensive repository for the best practices in governance aligned with 15 SDGs. Okay, so what is the objective? Is it is to promote transparency and policy awareness among citizens and researchers. Okay, so it is basically a repository, digital repository for governance documents. Then we have the e-Dakhil portal. E-Dakhil portal is an online platform under the Consumer Protection Act for filing grievances and tracking cases without physical presence. Okay, it aims to simplify consumer grievance process and ensure timely justice. So this was launched under the Consumer Protection Act. Okay, to ensure fast and hassle-free consumer grievance redress. Okay, we'll get a question saying e-Dakhil under which act? So is it IT Act, Consumer Protection Act, RTI, or Competition Act? Okay, correct answer is Consumer Protection Act. Next subtopic is revamped scheme for administrative reforms. So the government has provided funding for the revamped scheme for administrative reforms under the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. So what are the key features of the scheme? First of all, the ministry. It is under the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions. Then the implementation period. So it is from 2024 to 25 and 25 to 26. So it is a part of the 15th Finance Commission cycle. So there are two verticals. First is the scheme for comprehensive system for redressal of public grievances, and there is the scheme for administrative reforms. Okay, so under the first scheme, we have to enhance centralized public grievance redressal, the CP grams, through AI assisted redressal, integrating all grievance portal to create a single interface, okay, for citizens complaints. Then the capacity building of grievance officers. Under the scheme for administrative reforms, we have to focus on international collaboration, national e-governance awards, and streamlining the administrative processes. Okay, so what is the CP grams now? CPgrams was launched in 2007 as an online portal for citizens to file grievances against the public authorities. It is linked with all government ministries slash departments and states. Okay, but CPgrams is not applicable for RTI related matters, court cases, or religious issues. So this is important because suppose somebody has an issue with the court case, with any court case, and they are not happy about it, so they can't go on CPgrams and say ki I am, this is my grievance. Okay, that kind of thing is not allowed. Also RTI related matters also. Okay, so the 2022 reforms included a 10-step improvements to make grievance redressal more efficient. Okay. The next subtopic is annual NESDA report. Okay. The Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances released the National E-Governance Service Delivery Assessment Report. So what were the key highlights? So this report basically ranks states on their e-governance efficiency. Okay, so what were the highlights? Jammu and Kashmir topped the list with 1117 e-services. There are mandatory e-services which increased from 48% in 2019 to 76% in 2023. Kerala, Assam, Odisha, and J&K provide 100% of services through unified digital portals. Tourism sector achieved full digitalization in 23 out of 36 states slash UTs. Okay, yet there are some challenges like the digital divide and everything. What is important here is the NESDA report. Okay, who it is released for and what is their function. Okay, like you could get this. Which report assesses the e-governance efficiency? Okay, it is the NESTA or Digital Bharat Index. Okay. Something, both or none. The correct answer is this. Next subtopic is prevention of damage to public property. So the Supreme Court has taken suo motu cognizance of widespread damage to public property during protests and rallies. Okay. So what are the key provisions to this? The Prevention of Damage to Public Property Act penalizes those causing damage during the strikes, protest, and vandalism. So the Supreme Court also in its previous guidelines has recommended stricter accountability measures, including recovery damages from the protest organizers. Okay, so what is important per se is this act which penalizes this. So we have a legal backing to the damage caused by public, during the protests and everything. Okay, so suppose you get which act penalizes destruction of government infrastructure. Is it IPC, BNSS, all of that, disaster management, UAP, or the prevention of damage to public property? So you know the answer to it now. Next subtopic is portals for a modernized media landscape. So the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has launched new digital portals. Okay, so they have launched 4 digital portals. First one is the Press Seva portal. Okay, so Press Seva portal is for registration of newspapers. Newspaper registration. Second one is the Navigate Bharat portal. Okay, this is a single platform with an interactive user interface for government videos. Okay, suppose government has made some videos for their schemes and everything, so that you'll find on this particular portal. Third one is the National Register for Local Cable Operators. Okay, so this one, it streamlines the regulatory processes in the cable television sector. Okay, this is for streamlining the cable television sector. Okay, and last one is transparent empanelment media planning and e-billing system for Central Bureau of Communication. So this is basically to ensure enhance and ensure the transparency in media planning process. Okay, so these are the 4 portals that have been launched by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. So what are the features? They see a centralized digital oversight, content verification, self-regulation for OTT platforms. Okay, so what else is important here? The IT rules. IT rules of 2021. Okay, on digital impact on digital news regulation. Okay, next subtopic is the Pandaram lands case. Okay, the Supreme Court has held the customary land rights of the Pandaram community, protecting indigenous land tenure systems. Okay, so what is meant by the Pandaram lands is that, okay, this is a form of land ownership. Okay, it finds its origin from the Malayalam words. Okay, Panda means property and Aram means rent. Okay, so it is kind of a land ownership. So what has the Supreme Court ruled? It has recognized traditional land ownership rights of tribal and indigenous communities. It has set a legal precedent for balancing environment conservation with indigenous rights. So under what act? Under the Forest Rights Act of 2016. So again, which act governs the lands of tribals in India? It is the Forest Rights Act. Okay. Hence, the Pandaram case also becomes important. Next subtopic is Aadhaar card updates. So the Unique Identification Authority of India, UIDAI, introduced a new security feature in Aadhaar card to curb identity fraud. So what are the key features? AI-driven fraud detection to prevent impersonation, mandatory Aadhaar authentication for government welfare schemes, and increased encryption for Aadhaar-linked financial transactions. So what are the concerns we have? Aadhaar leaks, okay, Aadhaar data leaks. Then exclusion errors. Some people face issues in authentication leading to denial of benefits sometimes. Okay, that's why it is important. What you can study next is the privacy concerns and Aadhaar data protection. Also, the pros and cons of linking Aadhaar with various schemes. Next subtopic is no parliamentary immunity for taking bribes. Okay. The Supreme Court in Sita Soren versus Union of India overturned its 1998 PV Narasimha Rao judgment. The Supreme Court ruled that legislators cannot claim immunity under the Articles 105 and 194 if they accept bribes for voting or speeches in parliament slash assemblies. So what is it? What are these articles? These talk about the immunity to the MPs and MLAs. Okay, but Supreme Court has said that taking a bribe is not, is not under that ambit. Okay, so there is no immunity for taking bribe. If you've taken a bribe, that means you can be prosecuted. Okay, so bribery is not immune. MPs slash MLAs cannot evade criminal prosecution by citing parliamentary privileges. Okay, there should be a twofold test for privilege. Okay, so how can you say that a particular member of the parliament has a privilege? So it should be connected to the collective functioning of the house, and it should be necessary for performing legislative duties. So privilege can be on in these two cases. Criminal courts have jurisdiction. So taking bribe is an offense even if it violates the parliamentary rules. So the criminal courts have jurisdiction over the legislators. Extends to presidential and Rajya Sabha elections also. The privilege does not cover corrupt practices in elections. So basically, the entire idea of this, this event is that the privileges are not for taking bribes. Okay. What else becomes important? Article 105. Okay, which talks about the parliamentary privileges. So you have to go through this. So one thing that we know now is bribes are not under this. Next subtopic is tripartite agreement in Tripura. So there was a tripartite agreement which was signed between Government of India, Government of Tripura, and the Indigenous Progressive Regional Alliance, TIPRA. Okay, so what were the key provisions? Resolves historical land identity and political rights issues of the Tripura's indigenous communities. Establishes a working group / committee to implement mutually agreed points and prevents protests and agitations, ensuring peaceful demands. Okay, so that's why it is important. What else you can study with this is the similar agreements like the Bodo Accord or the Assam Accord. Okay. Next subtopic is the Supreme Court asks government to act on misleading advertisements. The Supreme Court has directed the government to curb misleading advertisements by fast-moving consumer goods companies and instructed union ministers to provide detailed steps on taking deceptive, advertising. So, what is meant by this definition of misleading advertisements? So, this has been defined under the Consumer Protection Act. Very important. Okay, so what is meant by that? Any ad that creates a false impression of a product or a service. Advertisement falsely guaranteeing quality, quantity, or nature. An ad promoting unfair trade practices or deliberately hiding crucial information. So, what is misleading according to the Act of the Consumer Protection Act? It is these things. Okay, what are the regulatory measures with respect to this? The Consumer Protection Act 2019 empowers the Central Consumer Protection Authority (CCPA) to regulate the misleading ads. Also, there are guidelines for prevention of misleading advertisement 2022, which established to prevent deceptive marketing. Also, Drugs and Magic Remedies Objectionable Advertisements Act prohibits ads making false claims about magical health remedies. Sometimes we see ads, which make claims that, magically your health will be better. Okay, so this particular act prohibits those kind of ads. Also, Food Safety Standards Act 2006 imposes penalties for misleading food related acts. Recent case, the Supreme Court is reviewing misleading health claims by an Ayurveda related company under the Drugs and Magic Remedies Act 1954, highlighting concerns over misleading medical product advertisements. Okay, so that's why it was in news. So which act regulates the misleading advertisements? IT Act, the DPDP Act, Competition Act, or the Consumer Protection Act? Okay, the correct answer is the Consumer Protection Act. World Press Freedom Index is already done, guys. You can just go through the previous videos. UGC regulation 2018 and Vice Chancellor appointments. So there has been conflicts between the UGC guidelines and the state laws over the Vice Chancellor appointments in the state universities. So what does the UGC say? UGC says that the Vice Chancellor be appointed by a panel recommended by the Governor slash Chancellor. Okay, the search cum selection committee should recommend 3 to 5 candidates. But what is the state government saying is that some state laws give the chief minister or the state government more control over the vice chancellor selection. Okay, recent court cases have upheld UGC guidelines stating that the state laws must comply with the national educational standards. Okay, that's why this is important. Okay, what else becomes important with respect to this is the UGC and other such like ICT for technical education, then NEP. Okay, so you could get a question saying which body regulates universities and higher education in India. Okay, options are AICTE, UGC, NCERT, or MHRD. Okay, correct answer is UGC. Next subtopic is diplomatic passport regulations. So new rules have been introduced for diplomatic passports, limiting the eligibility and tightening misuse of regulations. So now only high-ranking officials, MPs and diplomats will be issued diplomatic passports. Okay, in case of misuse of the diplomatic passports, it will result in immediate revocation. So who issues the diplomatic passports in India? The correct answer is the Ministry of External Affairs. Okay, what else you can study with respect to this is, guys, what is basic difference between the diplomatic and the ordinary passports, and privileges of diplomatic passports under the Vienna Convention. Even this is important. Okay, make sure that you give a read. Then we have the Mission Karmayogi. Why was it in news? Because the Capacity Building Commission completed 3 years as a part of the National Program for Civil Service Capacity Building. Okay, so this mission Karmayogi. What was this mission? It was launched in 2020, which aimed to transform India's civil services into a more efficient, accountable, and responsive bureaucracy. So it covers all civil servants, including contractual employees. Okay, so what are the key features of Mission Karmayogi? There has been a shift from rule-based to role-based training. Competency driven approach focusing on attitude, skills, and knowledge. Ask. Okay. Then there is a 70-20-10 learning model. 70% learning from on the job experiences, 20% from peer interactions, and 10% from formal training programs. Also, there is a centralized learning platform which is called as the IGOT Karmayogi, which is integrated government online training. Okay. So, what else becomes important with respect to this is, like we already saw, the lateral entry. Okay. Suppose you get a question saying, which platform under Mission Karmayogi for online training? Okay. So the answer is Diksha. Options are Diksha, IGOT, or Niti Learning Hub, or the Prashasan portal. Okay. The correct answer is IGOT. Next subtopic is online misinformation. The UN has released global principles for information integrity to counter misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech. So, what is the difference between misinformation and disinformation, guys? Misinformation means false or misleading content. Okay, shared without intent to deceive. Okay, so it is basically, you remember, mis means mistake. Okay, mistakenly, by mistake. Disinformation is false or false content deliberately spread to manipulate public opinion. So you can remember deliberate attempt. Okay. Mistake, and this means deliberate. Okay. So what is the impact of misinformation? Is there is a threat to democracy, then public safety risks, economic disruptions. Okay. So what is the global and Indian initiatives for this? UNESCO Social Media for Peace initiative, which builds resilience against misinformation. Then we have the IT Rules 2021, which holds platform accountable for content moderation, and the BNS, which includes penalties for fake news. Okay. So, which rule empowers the government to regulate online misinformation, guys? Regulation of online misinformation via IT Act 2000, IT Rules 2021, Cybercrime Regulation Act, or Digital India Security Act. Okay, so the correct answer to this is IT Rules of 2021. Next subtopic is women MPs in the 18th Lok Sabha. So 74 women MPs were elected to the 18th Lok Sabha, slightly lower than 78 in the 17th Lok Sabha. So currently women MPs make 13.6 of the Lok Sabha, decline from 14.4. Okay, into 2019. So 9.7 women candidates votes one sits, down from 10.4 in the 17th Lok Sabha. Global comparison, if we see that the global average in representation in parliament is 26.9, which is higher. Okay, very high. So what else becomes important is, this data, plus you can also study about the women's reservation bill. Okay. Last subtopic for today is self-declaration certificates for advertisement. So the MIB, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, has mandated self-declaration certificates for all new advertisements in print, TV, and digital media. Very important. So it covers everything. Okay. So what are the Supreme Court directives? No ad can be aired without a valid SDC, which is the self-declaration certificate. It ensures advertiser accountability. So advertisers must certify compliance with legal and ethical standards. Okay. So again, we studied about the Consumer Protection Act, right? Consumer Protection Act, which talked about the misleading advertisements, right? So this also becomes important. So the SDCs, and who all it who all comes under its ambit is the print, as in the newspaper, TV, and digital media as well. Okay, with this, your polity current affairs is finished, guys, and I hope that you have liked this. Thank you for watching the series, and if you're liking this initiative, please like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, also share it with your friends who are preparing for UPSC prelims, and you can find the PDF for the current affairs in our Telegram channel. The link is provided below. Thank you once again.